think at one point in time, indie was a really important word to delineate between the fact that the industry was dominated by Bollywood and that there wasn't really an infrastructure for a certain kind of sound that was burgeoning and it was rising and it was really powerful. But then, like all things evolve and grow, indie then started to be this like bracket term for anything non-Bollywood, even though the infrastructure had grown and we have certifiable stars in the non-Bollywood sector. And then I started to feel like the word indie became limiting,
Right.
and not necessarily a description that I was willing to take on anymore, even though, you know, it at one point did describe what I did.
Right.
I'm not sure. How do you feel about it?
Oh, well, you know, I look at it from so many different perspectives now. If I were to look at it sonically, indie means absolutely something, you know, something absolutely different in the West. Indie means, you know, something else here in India. Are we talking about structures, like you mentioned? Are we talking about sound? Are we talking about, you know, label affiliation? Are we talking about pure roots? I don't know.
Yeah.
In fact, I had to question my own editorial sort of preferences.
Yeah.
What does indie mean actually in today's time? So I am kind of conflicted because there's so much cross-pollination these days.
Right.
You find indie stars who are making, you know, their Bollywood debuts, and Bollywood, you know, certified stars who want to kind of collaborate with indie artists. But I don't know what the term means. Maybe I just know that there's a big revolution that's happening right now in the music space. But what is indie? I'm not too sure.
One thing I hated was that indie automatically equated no budget or less money or no money. And I was like, bro, it's time to grow up beyond this.
I know.
There was a time when it was like, oh, we're taking a chance, so we're doing this indie thing. And I know once upon a time in India there was indie pop,
Right.
and now there's hip hop.
Right.
But are hip hop people indie? Because, you know, there are lots of indie hip hop. I don't know.
I know. What about an underground rapper who just got signed to a label? Does he kind of compromise his indie roots when he gets signed to a label?
Yeah.
There are big labels that are investing in underground subculture and kind of putting together small-time labels. Are those labels indie labels?
Yeah.
What are indie labels?
Right.
So I don't understand. If they are able to control the distribution and the publishing machinery, they should not be calling themselves indie, because indie, at the end of the day, means DIY, do it yourself.
Yeah.
And if you're not doing it yourself, are you independent at all?
Which then brings me to the fact that often people who release like me, for example, with a major record label, what general audiences don't know, but what I'm about to tell you now, is that larger labels actually don't fund the music at all. It's often a cosmetic deal. The artist is actually doing absolutely everything, and then going to the label and saying, hey, I've got this finished, all my sound recordings are paid for, my record design is paid for, even my publicity and like the photos, or everything's paid for, I've done everything. Will you put the label infrastructure and just seeding it out into the market? Which is why my last EP, Seeing Red, I just decided to do without a label at all, because I wasn't ready to hand over the rights to my master recordings in perpetuity for free anymore.
Right.
But at one point, I really did think it was important for me to align with a larger label, just for that status, to uplift myself out of this ideology that I was underground. I'm not underground anymore.
Right.
It shows in my record sales, it shows at my shows, and I'm not underground anymore. So everything's in this, and what's really lovely to be a part of in India, I think, is the fact that we're at such a critical time. Literally, I think in 10 years or in 20 years, we're going to look back on this and be like, wow, we really changed the face of music in India at a time when a lot of people were scared to take risks,
Right.
but a certain amount of people were ready to stick their necks out and change the view, for example.
I was going to take your example. In fact, when you spoke about that time when people were beginning to see the space of music beyond Bollywood as a nice fertile ground, you know, where people were creating things that they believed in. I mean, your name comes to mind. I remember when I was in Delhi, this was maybe 2008-9. I think, you know, those few years before you guys started properly touring, which was when 2010, 11.
Yeah.
So I remember that period very clearly, because I saw the Facebook page and I couldn't make sense of the word. What is it? Is it share, shire, shah?
Yeah.
What is that apostrophe? But it was such a breath of fresh air for all of us, people who were, kind of witnessing the rock scene, and suddenly there was this fusion, sort of explosion coming from your end, and the visual respite that you provided. I think that was much needed, because we were not used to seeing acts that were that immersive, and I think you added that to the stage, and I think all of us are grateful for that. We have seen some fantastic performances by you in collaboration with these amazing artists, or you and Randolph together, and it gladdens my heart to see that there are people who believe in their art and who stick to their guns, and perseverance being one of the key things, in becoming whoever you want to be.
Patience
today.
and perseverance.
Oh yeah.